March 14th, 1590. France is breaking, and the man who would save France was King Henry IV. Not under foreign invasion, not from plague or famine, but from belief turned into fire. For more than 30 years, the kingdom has been tearing itself apart in a brutal civil war. Catholic against Protestant, city against city, neighbor against neighbor. Church bells ring for prayer in the morning and for executions by night. Armies march not under foreign banners, but beneath the same flag, against their own people. Cities change hands again and again. Nobles switch loyalties to survive, and kings do not die peacefully in their beds. They are assassinated by daggers, by gunfire, by hatred sharpened in the name of God. The French crown, once a symbol of order and divine authority, begins to lose its meaning. Who is king no longer matters as much as what he believes. And when Henry IV of France inherits the throne in 1589, France does not celebrate. It recoils. By law, he is king. By blood, he is legitimate. But by faith, he is unacceptable. He is a Protestant ruling a Catholic kingdom. Paris closes its gates to him. The Catholic League denounces him as a heretic, and half the nation refuses to recognize his crown. France does not merely reject its king, it prepares to destroy him. What follows is inevitable. Two armies begin to move. Alliances are called in, mercenaries are hired, and faith is sharpened into a weapon. Every road leads north, to a small town few outside Normandy remember, to a frozen field that will decide far more than a single battle. Because here on this ground, the future of France will be tested not by sermons or claims of divine right, but by command, by decision, by a king who understands something his enemies do not. That wars of religion are not won by belief alone. They are won by control. And on the morning of March 14th, 1590, everything converges here. Two armies face each other beneath cold skies. One trusts its numbers, its faith, its certainty. The other trusts a man who rides at the front of his soldiers, not behind them. A king who knows that if the heart of an army is broken, the body will follow. History will remember this place by a single name, a name spoken quietly at first, then echoed for centuries. Battle of Ivry. In 1589, France crowned a king it refused to obey. Henry of Navarre inherits the throne of France in 1589. On parchment, the succession is clear. The crown passes to him by right, but France is not ruled by parchment. It is ruled by fear, memory, and faith hardened by decades of bloodshed. Henry is a Protestant in a Catholic kingdom, still burning from religious war. To his supporters, he is the last hope for stability. To his enemies, he is a heretic wearing a stolen crown. Half the kingdom refuses to recognize him. Noble families hesitate. Cities delay their allegiance. And Paris, the heart of France, does not hesitate at all. Its gates slam shut. From behind its walls, the capital rejects its king. The Catholic League moves swiftly. They denounce Henry as illegitimate, unchosen by God, unfit to rule France. This is no longer a political dispute. It is an existential war. Henry understands something crucial, something many rulers before him failed to grasp. This war will not be won by ancestry. It will not be won by legal arguments. It will not be won by divine proclamations. In an age where faith is used to justify slaughter, legitimacy must be forged, and legitimacy is forged in victory. Henry does not waste time pleading with Paris. He does not wait for recognition that will never come. Instead, he prepares for confrontation, because he knows that if he can defeat the Catholic League in open battle, the argument will end, not with words, but with silence. Somewhere north of Paris, on cold and unforgiving ground, Henry will be forced to prove that he is more than a claimant. Ivry will be his trial. As winter grips northern France, two armies begin to move toward each other. The Catholic League advances with confidence. They have more men, more banners, more allies. Their ranks are thick with infantry. Their cavalry is numerous. Their standards carry the weight of tradition and faith. They believe the outcome is inevitable. Numbers will crush resistance. Unity of belief will overwhelm doubt. The so-called king will be swept aside. Across the field, Henry gathers his forces, around 12,000 men. They are fewer. They are worn down by years of campaigning. Many are mercenaries. Many are veterans. All are exhausted, but they are unified. They are not bound together by doctrine. They are not fighting for theological victory. They fight for the man who rides among them. Henry does not command from safety. He does not observe from the rear. He shares their hardship, their hunger, their risk. In a time when kings rule from distance, Henry leads from the front, and his soldiers know it. They do not see an abstract ruler. They see a commander who exposes himself to the same danger. This difference defines everything. The Catholic League trusts superiority. Henry trusts cohesion. The League believes faith guarantees victory. Henry believes victory must be engineered. One army expects obedience through numbers. The other earns loyalty through presence. As the distance between the two forces closes, the contrast becomes undeniable. This will not be a battle decided by how many banners fly. It will be decided by which army can endure shock, confusion, and fear. Henry understands a truth many commanders forget. Armies do not collapse when they lose men. They collapse when they lose leadership. Ivry is not just a battle for France. It is a collision between two ways of thinking about war, and only one of them can survive. Before the battle even begins, Henry IV of France has already decided how it will end. Not with numbers, not with patience, but with a single, sharpened strike. 3,000 horsemen, one symbol of command, and an enemy that does not yet realize it is already exposed. Henry's army is built around one decisive element: cavalry, not massed infantry, not prolonged exchanges of gunfire, but speed, shock, and control. 3,000 horsemen form the core of his force. They are veterans, men hardened by years of war, well-armed, disciplined. This cavalry is not treated as support. It is not held back in reserve. It is not hidden on the flanks, waiting for an opportunity that may never come. They are positioned to strike. They are the blade. Henry understands that battles are not won by evenly grinding down an enemy. They are won by breaking structure, by shattering the point where command, morale, and movement converge. Across the field, the Catholic League deploys a larger army, 15,000 strong. On paper, the advantage is overwhelming. More infantry, more cavalry, more banners stretching across the horizon. But strength hides a fatal weakness. Their command is fragmented. Different contingents answer to different leaders. Orders travel slowly. Coordination is assumed, not enforced. Their cavalry is scattered across the formation, spread wide, divided, unfocused. And worst of all, their confidence is dangerously high. They believe superiority guarantees victory, that numbers alone will crush resistance, that Henry will fight defensively, cautiously, predictably. But Henry is not preparing for a conventional battle. He studies the field, the spacing, the alignment, the rigidity of the enemy center, and in seconds he sees it. A force that looks strong, but cannot absorb shock. An army that will not bend, only break. Before the battle begins, Henry does something simple, something quiet. He places a white plume into his helmet. No gold, no crown, no royal insignia, just white. Then he speaks, not as a king addressing subjects, but as a commander addressing soldiers. If you lose sight of your standards, follow my white plume. You will find it on the road to honor and victory. This is not poetry. This is not symbolism. This is battlefield psychology. Henry understands what chaos does to men. When smoke fills the air, when gunfire deafens the senses, when formations dissolve into fragments. Men do not look for orders. They look for direction. They look for certainty. The white plume is not meant to inspire. It is meant to orient. In the confusion of battle, every soldier will know exactly where leadership is, not behind them, not shouting from safety, but at the front, moving forward. The plume becomes a fixed point in a collapsing world, a signal that command has not vanished, that the plan is intact, that someone still sees the whole battlefield. Henry is not asking his men to fight for France, or for religion, or for a distant idea of legitimacy. He is asking them to follow. And in war, following is everything. As the armies prepare to collide, the contrast is complete. One side trusts numbers and assumption. The other trusts clarity and control. One spreads its strength thin. The other concentrates it into a single decisive weapon. 3,000 horsemen, one visible leader, one clear objective. The field of Ivry is about to become more than a battlefield. It will become a demonstration of how armies truly collapse, of how command truly functions, of how a single decision made before the first blow is struck can determine the fate of an entire war. And as the white plume catches the morning light, Henry knows something his enemies do not. The battle will not be decided where the armies are largest. It will be decided where leadership is unmistakable and where the blade falls. Most battles are decided by hours of fighting. This one is decided by a single moment. While thousands clash blindly across the field, Henry IV of France sees what no one else dares to act on. And in that instant, he makes a decision that will shatter an army and redefine a king. The battle begins as battles usually do. Infantry advances in measured lines. Gunfire cracks across the frozen air. Drums beat steadily, holding formations together. Steel meets steel. Smoke begins to rise. The field fills with noise, motion, and confusion. To most commanders, this is the moment to wait, to observe, to commit slowly, to let the battle reveal itself. But Henry does not watch blindly. He studies. Through smoke and movement, his eyes lock onto the enemy center. It is dense, tightly packed, heavy with officers, standards, and command. On the surface, it looks strong, immovable, reassuring. But Henry sees something else: rigidity, a formation built on order rather than flexibility, an army relying on structure instead of adaptation. Most generals would hesitate here. They would fear the risk, the loss, the possibility of disaster. Henry calculates instead. He understands a truth learned only by those who have watched armies collapse. Destroying soldiers does not end battles. Destroying control does. If the center breaks, orders stop. If orders stop, cohesion vanishes. If cohesion vanishes, numbers become meaningless. The battlefield does not need to be conquered. It needs to be unbalanced. Henry's decision forms in seconds. Not reckless, not emotional, precise. He raises his sword, and without ceremony and without hesitation, he rides. 3,000 horsemen surge forward, not spread wide, not cautiously probing the flanks. Straight. The ground trembles beneath hooves. Armor rattles. Lances lower. This is not a gradual advance. It is impact. Steel slams into the enemy center with devastating force. Officers are struck down before they can react. Standards fall into the mud. Messengers vanish into chaos. The Catholic center does not bend. It fractures. Orders cannot travel through the shock. Commands die where they are spoken. Units hesitate, unsure who to follow. Within moments, confidence turns to confusion. What was once a solid core becomes a mass of disconnected fragments. Men look left, then right. They search for signals that no longer exist. This is the moment Henry has engineered, because panic does not spread from the edges, it spreads from the heart. As the center collapses, the wings feel it instantly. Formations stall. Momentum dies. Fear replaces certainty. This is not chaos. This is precision. Every movement of the charge has purpose. Every second compounds the damage. The enemy army is still larger, still armed, still dangerous, but it is no longer directed, and an undirected army is already defeated. Henry's cavalry does not slow. They drive forward, widening the rupture, turning disorganization into collapse. The battlefield transforms. What began as a contest of strength becomes a lesson in command. Men are not fleeing because they are losing. They are fleeing because they no longer know who is winning. The Catholic League's advantage evaporates in minutes, not because they lacked courage, but because they lost leadership. As dust and smoke swallow the center of the field, the outcome is no longer in doubt. Ivry is not decided by attrition. It is decided by a single decision, executed with absolute commitment. Henry does not win because he charged. He wins because he knew where to strike. And as the enemy line dissolves behind him, one truth becomes undeniable. This battle was never about numbers. It was about understanding war. And in that understanding, Henry IV proves that he is not merely a king by law, but a commander by instinct. An army does not realize it is defeated when men fall. It realizes it is defeated when it no longer knows where to stand. At Ivry, that moment comes suddenly, and when it does, an entire war changes direction. Without its center, the Catholic League army begins to unravel. Not all at once, not dramatically. At first it is subtle. One wing hesitates. Its officers wait for orders that never arrive. They look toward the center and see only confusion. Another wing begins to pull back. Not a retreat, just a step. A pause meant to regain alignment. But armies do not recover when leadership disappears. They drift. Moments later, hesitation becomes movement. Movement becomes withdrawal, and withdrawal becomes flight. The line breaks. What was once a single, confident force fractures into disconnected masses of men, each reacting, none commanding. Across the field, panic spreads faster than any cavalry charge. Soldiers do not run because they are cowards. They run because no one is telling them where safety lies. Standards fall, signals vanish, messengers ride into emptiness. The Catholic League's greatest strength? Its size, now works against it. Crowded formations clog escape routes. Units collide instead of supporting one another. Fear multiplies. At the center of the storm, Charles of Lorraine, Duke of Mayenne, makes his choice. He flees the field, not to regroup, not to counterattack, but to survive. And with that decision, the battle is over. What began in the morning as certainty, as divine confidence and numerical superiority, ends in disordered retreat. Ivry is decided, not by slaughter, not by annihilation, but by collapse. An army still capable of fighting has simply stopped being an army. Ivry does not end the war. Paris will still resist. The Catholic League will not vanish overnight. France will continue to suffer. But something irreversible has happened on that frozen field. For the first time, Henry of Navarre is no longer merely a claimant defended by loyal followers. He is a proven commander, a king who understands war. At Ivry, Henry IV of France demonstrates a truth that France can no longer ignore. He can win, not through chance, not through brute force, but through decision. The victory does more than break an enemy army. It reshapes perception. Nobles who hesitated begin to reconsider. Cities watch more carefully. Even enemies begin to measure him differently. Henry understands that power in France cannot rest on force alone. Victory opens doors, but peace requires realism. Years later, Henry will make the decision that finally ends the wars of religion. He will convert to Catholicism, not from weakness, not from fear, but from clarity. He understands that France does not need another martyr king. It needs stability. And so he accepts a truth as hard as any battlefield calculation. Paris is worth a mass. With that choice, resistance fades. The crown is no longer contested, and France, after decades of bloodshed, begins to breathe again. Ivry becomes more than a battle. It becomes a turning point. The moment a rejected king proves himself indispensable. The moment intelligence defeats certainty. The moment leadership outlasts faith in numbers. History often remembers victories by the bodies they leave behind. Ivry is remembered for something far rarer, a collapse so complete that it ended an argument about who deserved to rule France. And from that collapse, a kingdom was finally rebuilt. History often tells us that wars are won by faith, that numbers decide fate, that courage alone can bend the future. Ivry tells a different story. It reminds us that battles are not won by belief alone, nor by superiority of men, nor even by bravery in the face of death. They are won by decisions. One moment, one calculation made under pressure, one choice that accepts risk when hesitation would mean defeat. At Ivry, thousands fought, thousands advanced, thousands fell, but the battle itself turned on a single act of understanding. While others saw chaos, one man saw structure. While others reacted, one man decided. Henry IV of France did not win because he believed harder than his enemies. He did not win because he had more soldiers. He did not win because fortune favored him. He won because he understood war. He understood that armies are not defeated when bodies fall. They are defeated when direction disappears. That truth has echoed across centuries of warfare, from fields of pikes to columns of muskets, from cavalry charges to modern battle lines. Ivry stands as a reminder that leadership is not volume, it is clarity. In the smoke and confusion of battle, Henry did something deceptively simple. He made himself visible, a white plume, cutting through gunpowder smoke, moving forward when retreat would have been safer, not as a symbol of royalty, but as a point of orientation, so that when fear erased certainty, every man would still know where command stood. That plume did more than guide soldiers. It guided history, because Ivry did not merely decide a battle, it decided a king. From that frozen field emerged a ruler no longer questioned for his right, but respected for his ability. A king who would later choose peace over pride, unity over endless war, and in doing so, heal a nation torn apart by belief sharpened into violence. Centuries later, the battlefield is silent. The banners are gone. The soldiers are dust. But the lesson remains. Wars are not shaped by chance. They are shaped by minds willing to decide when others hesitate. One charge, into the heart of an army, into the center of history. This was the Battle of Ivry, and this was the mind of a king. Music fades to silence.